30 miles per hour.
Let's take a look at your tropical update. Boy, we got some action in the tropics, don't we? We're starting with Danny. Kristen died down at Gulf Shores in the eye of the storm again today. She was yesterday. We're going to start calling her Eye of the Storm Kristen died, but she's down there for you so that you can get a first-hand perspective of this system. Jim Cantori's down in the area as well, and we're going to be trying to get there with a visible shot that you can see, but right now conditions are pretty bad down there, and there's some flooding problems as well. Now, Hurricane Danny's current coordinates are 30.2 north, 88.0 west, about 25 miles southeast of Mobile, Alabama, although from the time that this fix was made, looks like there's been some northerly movement, and we'll show you a Doppler radar and where that eye is sitting right now. Wind 75 miles per hour and moving very little, but tending to wobble or move to the north. 985 millibars, that's the latest reconnaissance pressure fix. Gulfport, Mississippi to Apalachicola, Florida is where we have the hurricane warnings that are currently in effect, and to the east of the storm is where the highest storm surge will be, and that could be 4 to 8 feet above normal tide. So significant, certainly at high tide, significant anyway. I think anyone that lives down near the coast will attest to that. Here's your current satellite picture as we enhance it, and shows the rotation right around Mobile Bay. This is Mobile Bay, by the way. This is Dauphin Island just out to the west. Just to the east is Gulf Shores, which is on the east side and right along the east side of the eye of the storm. This being the eye, you can see the circulation around it. Winds have shifted. Dauphin Island has reported winds up to 73 miles per hour early this morning. And in these outer rain bands, we're getting some reports that there's been some rotation in some of the cells.
Get anything. Get something. Get a camcorder. Baby, we ain't got no camcorder.
No faster, more advanced way to capture life's most incredible moments.
The Home Shopping Network. We have what you want.
This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on. Only on the Weather Channel. Channel. No place on earth has better weather.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bruce Edwards in the Weather Channel Forecast Center as we continue to monitor, I want to say, the progress of Hurricane Danny, but there hasn't been much progress. Danny is stationary, sitting over Mobile Bay. Here's the latest coordinates and position information for those of you tracking the hurricane. It's been very easy. You just have to keep a dot in the same spot because Danny hasn't moved. It is stationary. As of 11 a.m. Eastern Time, is centered at 30.4 north, 87.9 west. It says 30 miles southeast of Mobile. Well, yes, that's true, but it's right over Mobile Bay as we speak. The significant change in this latest update from the Hurricane Center is that the maximum sustained winds have increased to 80 miles per hour. Yes, it is still a Category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It has gotten a little stronger, of course, but the most significant thing is that it is nearly stationary. It is not moving, so the same area continues to get hammered with the intense wind and rain associated with the hurricane. The central pressure has held steady since the last observation at 984 millibars. That's about the only thing in Mobile Bay holding steady this morning is the pressure, because Kristen Dodd of the Weather Channel has been down there since the storm arrived, and everything's still shake, rattle, and roll in Mobile. Good morning, Kristen.
Yeah, it definitely is. The fact that this storm has held stationary is definitely not good news for us, because that means that our strong winds and also the heavy rainfall also continues to pound us. Through the past 8 or 9 hours, we have been getting extremely heavy rainfall in some of the area ditches and the parking lots and the low-lying areas.
Sprint long distance, and a deal that'll blow you away. Up to 30 minutes of free long distance calling every month for a year when you order Sprint from Comcast. Not to mention Sprint cents with dime-a-minute rates. So call Comcast and start talking up a storm. Comcast. Everything you connect with.
This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on. Only on the Weather Channel.
Danny, as of 4 p.m. Central there, the coordinates centered near 30.4 north, 87.8 west, roughly 35 miles east-southeast of Mobile, Alabama. Sustained winds at 75 miles per hour, nearly stationary, although there's been a push towards the east, 988 millibars. As far as the pressure, still have the hurricane warnings running from Gulfport, Mississippi, eastbound along the coast to Apalachicola. And as is typical with most hurricanes in that northeastern quadrant, if you were to cut the line north, south, east, west, right in that northeastern quarter of the system as it's moving, that's where your highest probability of tornadic thunderstorms. Some of the feeder bands and the intense thunderstorms can actually spawn weak, fairly short-lived, but nonetheless tornadoes embedded within some of the stronger squalls, and doesn't have to always be in the northeast. That's your highest probability, not to say it can't happen in other quadrants or other parts of the circulation with the hurricane. The visible satellite imagery, some of the higher clouds peeling off there to the north into central Alabama and west central Georgia. You can see the rather slow motion here as the system continues to spin, but at least thankfully the weakening trend appears to be on tap now as it continues to push its way east of Mobile Bay and head into the extreme southeastern corner of Baldwin County. Now here's a Doppler radar depiction of the hurricane's circulation with the rainfall, very intense, cutting in across Baldwin County. Down around Dauphin Island, we have an observation point that, again, in this particular case, very valuable to assess what's been going on. Some of the peak gusts here, 101 miles per hour. I believe that was like 7, 8 o'clock this morning. That was the highest peak gust that we saw from the hurricane as it came in.
Some folks will take...
Region up where the Mobile airport is, which is further north of inland, they've gotten actually almost 10 inches of rain. Incredible amounts of rain, and again with the slow movement, that is going to be the primary threat with this. The winds have been pounding the shores of Alabama, no doubt about that, and they've been sustaining, well, we've had hurricane force winds there actually since what, about 4 a.m.?
That's right, but right now we've gotten no recent reports of actual hurricane force sustained winds, but since that center is near the coast, it's still a possibility. They're seeing actual sustained hurricane winds, maybe just a very small area. Doppler radar indicated the strongest winds are now just to the west of the center, which is actually different than what we had yesterday. All the strong winds yesterday were east of the center.
Okay. Matt, thanks a lot. He'll be joining us.
We continue to follow the progress of Hurricane Danny. This is our tropical update, which we do every hour at about 10 till the hour. Here's the latest on Danny as of 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time. It is drifting slowly eastward. Top winds still at 75 miles an hour, so it is just over the threshold for hurricane status. Its center is placed at 30 miles west-southwest of Pensacola, Florida. And this coming out of the National Hurricane Center, the 6 p.m. advisory. Now, the pressure has come up a little bit, 990 millibars, 29.23 inches. We still have hurricane warnings in effect from Gulfport, Mississippi, over to Apalachicola, Florida. And the storm is very slow moving, and this is increasing the chances that areas that are seeing heavy rain will continue to see heavy rain. You can see the oranges and reds showing some of the heavier convection now just to the east of Mobile Bay, between Mobile Bay and the Florida border, and we have seen quite a bit of rain. You can also see the outflow. Notice that at the upper levels the winds are spinning clockwise. That's anticyclonic, high pressure at upper levels. It's the outflow from the storm, while at low levels you can see the cyclonic, the counterclockwise curvature of a low pressure system. And here you can obviously see it. This is the Doppler radar, and you can see some of that heavier rain now here right on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay. You can see the center here pretty much right along the coast, very close to the Florida-Alabama border, and also some heavier rainfall here right along the Mississippi-Alabama border, crossing over into eastern Mississippi. Now we leave Danny temporarily to show a few other aspects of the tropics. This is what used to be Tropical Depression 5, no longer being classified as a tropical depression. However, it is in still a favorable area for tropical development, so we'll be watching this carefully as it continues to press westward, and it is possible we could see this redevelop into Tropical Depression 5 again. So we will keep an eye on this and let you know if it does start to pick up a little more steam and redevelop into a tropical system. Another powerful storm in the Pacific, Hurricane Felicia, as of 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, winds of 130 miles an hour, moving west at 15 miles an hour, centered about 1,655 miles east-southeast of Hilo, Hawaii. Very compact storm, well-defined eye here you can see, and it is heading westward. We can give you the big picture here. Here's Felicia, and here is Hawaii, but it is expected to move over cooler waters and should be weakening far earlier before it reaches
Well, we have Kristen Dodd ahead of the storm in Evergreen, Alabama, our own Mike Seidel. We're going to start things out first with Kristen, and we were watching throughout the day, Kristen, and things were pretty lively there. It looks like it settled down somewhat, though.
Things have settled down a bit. However, we were hoping that things would be much better than this. When we last brought you a live report, we were hoping that things would be much improved, and as a matter of fact, over the next or past 3 hours, things weren't too bad, but that was because we were in the eye. We had hoped that the storm or the hurricane would continue to move away from us, but now it looks like we are going to get more of the torrential rains and very strong winds. Right now we just have some light rain, and the winds really are not too bad. A lot of folks have been out assessing some of the damage because we have had quite a bit of damage with some roofs torn off. And folks here really have been beaten down by this. They're really disheartened the fact that they are going to get more of the rough weather. Now, some of the locals call this area of the coastline of southeast Alabama Pleasure Island, but our stay here has been anything but pleasurable.
Hurricane Danny gave Gulf Shores, Alabama a rude awakening very early this morning. A vicious wind and heavy rains roared through the area. The Category 1 hurricane pounded our location for over 12 hours. Reporting through the elements became very difficult.
It's extremely dangerous and extremely windy, and I'm going to step out just very briefly into the full force of the winds to give you an idea of what that is like. As you can see, quite a bit stronger, and it's very difficult to even be standing up out in the full force of the wind.
To avoid flying debris, we retreated inside. Close to us, you could see the visible signs of Danny's wrath. Roofs were ripped off, streets were flooded, and in one instance, a nearly completed condominium building collapsed. The hurricane certainly made its mark. The popular tourist town is virtually empty. Most visitors left yesterday, and with the power out, the streets remain dark.
That situation has changed within the past 5 minutes. The lights have come on, and when they did, all the hotel employees erupted in cheers. That was some good news, but we don't know how long that is going to last with more strong winds on the way. Now let's join the Weather Channel's Mike Seidel in Evergreen, Alabama. Mike?
Kristen, some of those people from Gulf Shores have headed north up I-65 here to Evergreen, Alabama today to get out of the way of Hurricane Danny. We're about 65, 70 miles from Mobile, and we're about 80 miles due north of Kristen's location in Gulf Shores. And so far, no rain. There was sunshine today. The breeze is running 5 to 10 miles an hour, and it is just a very quiet, muggy, warm July evening here in south central Alabama. We do expect some rain overnight tonight. There is a flash flood watch up for the area, but so far we have not seen any rainfall. And if Danny continues to drift east or even east-southeast, we may be spared the brunt of Danny and certainly none of the rainfall like we've seen around Mobile Bay. As the sun goes down, we have a beautiful sunset, a lot of cirrus clouds up above there, 25, 30,000 feet. And we have seen some stratus clouds kind of wrapping in on the fringe of Danny. But again, from Evergreen, Alabama tonight, Sharon, it is quiet, it is warm, it's muggy, and we're waiting for Danny's rains.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike Seidel, and we'll be checking in with our live TV coverage as we head into the next half hour. Joining us now, Matt Crowther, our senior meteorologist. And Matt, let's go ahead first and look at a Doppler radar. And we will find the heaviest rain actually to the west of, well, the center of circulation. There's no longer an eye to the storm.
That's right, and we do see that eastward drift. Although you look at these last couple of pictures here, it looks like it may have even slowed down again a little bit. This storm has been slowing down and stopping about every 3 or 4 hours for its whole life cycle. It's been very erratic. Of course, that's because the steering currents in the mid-levels of the atmosphere are very weak, and we don't see that continuing. And as Mike was mentioning, if the storm continues in this kind of a fashion, then up in here where he is, they may not get much rain, but of course, anywhere this storm goes, we're really expecting a lot of heavy rain, and we got some reports right in this area, right here, just on the west side of Mobile Bay. We just got a storm report out of the Weather Service of 24 to 27 inches of rain. So the Doppler radar estimates were quite accurate in that area.
Yes, they are. We've had rainfall estimates there coming down 2 to 4 inches an hour, so a tremendous amount of rain has been falling on that western edge. This is a Doppler storm estimate, and we can kind of get a feel for how much has fallen, and there is a lot of bright pink there indicating some of these regions have seen just copious amounts of rain. The only silver lining might be that as we see an eastward drift, some of that heavier rain will finally be giving some folks relief as it moves off to the east.
That's right. Actually, the more this moves, the better, because it's when it stalls out is when you really have the bad problem, of course. And here, as we mentioned, 27 inches of rain. That's an incredible amount for only about a 36-hour period.
Okay, rainfall amounts again as we take a peek at them. Mobile, Alabama, 10.04 inches, and there's a look at the hurricane warnings. We should reiterate that it's important to note that the hurricane warnings remain in effect because the center of circulation is still somewhat over the warm open waters of the Gulf of Mexico.
That's right, although in the latest advisory from Miami, they are talking about possibly downgrading the system a little bit later. And one good sign is even though the center is near water, we've seen a 3 millibar pressure rise in the reconnaissance aircraft report. And if that trend continues, there's a pretty good chance that later tonight or maybe by tomorrow morning it'll be down to a tropical storm.
That's what we want to hear. Okay, thanks a lot, Matt Crowther. And again, Mike will be chasing the storm along with it.
The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Time to talk about the tropics here at the Weather Channel. Thanks for being here. I'm Paul Emick with Charles McCrae, our director this hour. Let's talk about, I guess, what would be considered some good news. Hurricane Danny earlier, now downgraded to Tropical Storm Danny. Still, its winds have decreased just kind of below the threshold for Hurricane Force, sustained winds, now 70 miles per hour, which is just enough of a decrease to make it a tropical storm, and those are parameters there. Winds at 70 miles per hour moving east at 3 miles per hour. You see the pressure there at 994 millibars, or at 2935 inches of mercury. Current position right there, 25 miles west-southwest of Pensacola, Florida, here toward the Florida Panhandle. And of course, it's expected right now, looks like the motion from this system is going to maintain moving east a little bit longer. Again, very slow east at 3 miles per hour. And it should eventually, maybe overnight to early morning, start to take a bit of a northeasterly trek.
Now what that's going to do is toward the morning hours put this heavy rainmaker kind of crossing over into the Florida Panhandle on through the morning hours. So yeah, we're expecting to see that kind of skirt along the coast and then cross over into parts of Florida to bring more wet weather your way there in the Panhandle. Around the path already in southern parts of Alabama, as much as 20 inches of rain in many places. A lot of places reported as much as 27 inches in one particular spot, but another 10 to 20 inches of rainfall just as the system moves on. That's possible. Now, what we're not seeing is any kind of steering. You know, I talked about the jet stream a lot, the upper level winds, the big river of air that moves systems along and guides so much of the weather. Without that guidance, it's kind of cut off and on its own, and don't expect a big kicker for a little while to come through to kind of make anything of the moisture and get it out of the way. It might just meander around the southeast for a while and keep some wet weather coming down. You can still see where the convection is taking place, the bubbling, the storminess of this storm. You see that red shading, kind of an orangish red there, and the orange and the yellow indicating a lot of the heavier convection still. Mobile Bay being right there, kind of a spot there to kind of get a fix on. But again, it is moving on, and not too far away from the Pensacola area. Still lots of rain. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll have more updates coming momentarily here at the top of the hour. Radar picture showing that where you see some of those yellows there, that indicates a lot of rainfall. Again, that has been the biggest thing with this system, has been just intense amounts of rain. And that is expected to continue. Although I guess the thing is, as it has actually been moving on and moving eastward and maybe slowly northeastward, on land now, away from the rich moisture supply, as it does move on, it picks up, gets further away from the shore. The further from the water, rather, the further it gets away from the water, it starts to get cut off from its source of energy. So the closer it gets, the further it moves on to land, and it's going to continue to weaken. It looks like the system will weaken, a lot of it pushing in here as the center of circulation continues to move onshore. Gasoline gets cut off, like the car, you know, kind of lose the juice to make it go, and we'll see things start to weaken. Another system we're watching now, and we have one out of the way, now we got to talk about another one. This is a tropical wave. Now it's moving into a spot where we've actually been talking about this for a couple of days. It was in another system. It kind of decreased overnight as a tropical depression. It's still a wave hanging out here, though. It did get kind of sheared apart, didn't amount to too much. Now the upper level winds can often rip a tropical system apart. We call it shear. A number of things you need to get a tropical storm going, and that's weak winds aloft. Can't have very strong winds. Kind of in a breeding ground, they often come from an area where there's like a pre-existing type of circulation for it to get going. Also water temperature of a threshold around 80 degrees, and of course that's met here with a very warm conditions, and high pressure anticyclonic flow aloft. Well, these are the things that are kind of conspiring as this moves on into an area of more favorable development.